All right, I am Josh. This is, of course, the Citystead. Today, I gotta do a little project. I'm gonna fix up one of my old composting units, and I thought it'd be a really good time to give you an idea of an easy way to compost in a very, very tiny place. So first I need to grab some supplies. So having a good compost source on hand can help you have a very successful garden. I started some compost. I have a few different systems that I use. This was the very first system I ever set up. I didn't really know a ton, and I just needed something simple and easy that I could do. And this was the simplest, easiest form of composting I could possibly find, and it took up the least amount of space. What do you think? You guys ready for a little sexy montage of the composter? Yeah? Alright, so it's easy to see that my first composter ever was a Rubbermaid tote. Perfect composter. This thing actually did a ton of work for us. At one point in time, it was filled all the way to the brim. We used a lot of this to mend the beds, you know, top coat on a lot of beds, to start seeds. We actually ended up using it for a whole lot. I loved having this composter, but it's kind of been neglected since we started doing a couple other things. And yeah, I'm just gonna try to fix it up a little bit today. Supercharge it from what it was already, because it did work, but it could be better. And I'm going to show you guys kind of how I did it, what I'm going to do to make it a little bit better in my opinion. And then, yeah, that's it. I'm going to show you how to make the ultimate urban compost bin. So when I used this last, I actually got a big old crack in the bottom there. It's a little hard to see, but cracked it really good. I'm gonna fix that up. I'm gonna do a little trick here that should hold that a little bit better. Give me a sturdier bottom for when I'm moving it around, if that ever happens. It was kind of stuck in one spot, and I think what happened was that frost got frozen to the ground. I tried to move it when it was still a little frozen to the ground, and you know, just a little bit of weight in there. Pop. These things can't get brittle, they can't get old. Depends on how well you take care of it. If you were to throw this in your garage, it'd probably work a lot better. I just left it outside. It was easier. So I would do this outside, but honestly, I built this greenhouse so I would have some warm area to work, you know, when it was freezing cold outside. And while not freezing, it is definitely colder than I would like. So I cut this little piece of wood here. It's nothing good. I think it's a 1/4 inch little sheet of wood here. I am going to put it over the bottom of the indent part on the bottom of this bin, and I'm going to drill corner holes in it. I'm just going to put some bolts in there to kind of hold it in place. This is going to kind of reinforce that bottom a little bit, give me something to set it down on, and hopefully give me a little more use out of this thing. If I can keep this bin around as long as possible, that's better, because I am cheap and I try to do things in a very cheap manner. So I would like to only buy one bin. All right, let's get drilling. Alright, well, you can see here I just bolted it on. Here I got the nut on the inside, a couple washers, hold it on nice and tight. And that's just gonna help me have a better base, you know, something to hold on. Like I said, mine is cracked. I want to try to preserve it a little bit longer, so I'm doing this. This is definitely not a step that you have to do to use a bin as a composter, but this could add a little extra stability to the bottom of your frame, just to make it a little bit stronger, make it hopefully last a little bit longer for you. Maybe that's an interesting, maybe that's a good tip that you can apply to yours, or leave it off, just do a normal bin. So now we got our bin, we got a lid. I'm going to show you the first most important step. So I mentioned we are supercharging this. It was decent before and it worked. It was very functional. I'm going to try to make it a little bit better. things I've learned over the years from when I originally built this and used it the most to now, I feel like I have a better understanding of some things. One thing I really lacked in here was a really decent airflow. So we had holes in the top, gave us a little bit of air. Mostly we use those to actually help moisten the compost when it rained out and things like that. We had some drain holes in the bottom. I did not have any kind of actual air holes to kind of let some oxygen in there to mix in with the compost. So what I'm gonna do is take my 1/4" drill and I'm gonna go down the top a little bit, maybe do 2 or 3 rows of just a bunch of holes in the 2 sides so I can get a lot of airflow through here, because oxygen is definitely a key to creating a really good compost. Alright, so now we got some nice air holes in it. We got a lot of airflow for this. This is what we need, good oxygen flow. Fill it up with that. We're gonna take it outside, we're gonna fill it up now. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna fill it up and what we do to keep it aerated, moving around, and change it up, and how we add to it and all that. So outside we go. So most compost, you would start with some kind of brown material. I got a little bit of soil that came out of here, the little last bit of it that was in here. We're gonna throw that back in there. I also have some leaves. We're gonna put that in there as our brown, add some carbon in there. And then we got some nitrogen in our fresh fruits and vegetables and all the good stuff in this bin right here. That's been compost we've been collecting for a little while. I got some eggshells also that are really good for this. So now we're gonna fill it up. We're gonna kind of do a little bit of lasagna style. I'm gonna put some dirt, put a little leaves, a little bit of the compost in the vegetables from the house, scraps. And then we're just gonna keep doing it until we run out. So you can't see, this is what came out of there. This is what the compost looked like after sitting there for a while. And that's really nice stuff right there. That is great soil. We're just gonna try to create a lot more of that using all the other stuff that we have. Alright, so we got all our stuff mixed in there. We kind of lasagna layered it. We put a little bit of that soil, leaves, and then our scraps from the kitchen. And then we did another layer like that. I also have this old mossy plant thing here that has run its course. We're going to throw that in there. We're just going to use a little bit of that soil. Now I'm using the soil to kind of kickstart this compost because it was already in here, already working. If you were going to do just leaves, this is a perfect thing to start in like the fall. Fill it with leaves, add your kitchen scraps over the time, and by springtime you should have somewhere close to some really good soil. Now the leaves break down quicker if you were to shred them up a little bit, maybe run them over with a lawnmower a couple times, then throw them in here. These have already been sitting out all winter, kind of breaking down. I'm going to go ahead and use them this way. I think they'll be fine. By the time I need to use this soil, it's actually going to be next year anyways. And leaves generally take about a year to break down. The toughest of leaves do. So now I'm going to give it a good stir. So while I'm stirring it up, I'm trying to break up some of that bigger stuff with the end of the shovel. So the next thing we're gonna have to do is add a little bit of moisture to the compost. It's important to have moisture. That is what's gonna help aid in the breakdown of everything. We gotta keep it moist, but we don't want it drowned. So we do have to have some drain holes on the bottom. which I already drilled. I didn't show you guys that, but I drilled some drain holes at the bottom of it, and I got a couple holes in the top lid to actually let more water in. And I kind of just did a few holes so that it didn't get super soaked when it rained, but just enough to where water would get in here, and if I have to add water, I would just splash some water in there. Here's our lid. You can see I just did some small holes. These are 1/8 holes. And I didn't do a ton of them. I just did enough to let some of that water get in there. Like I said, we don't want to drown our compost. That will not help it any. I added a little bit extra water just to get it going, but with the drain holes, it's going to soak out really easy. And it looks like we're going to have a couple dry days. So I want to have a little bit of water in there to get it going. And after that, it's going to self-regulate. I will never actually have to really add water to it. From my experience with this one that we've already used, I've never really had to add too much water. This lid, the way I did it, lets in just enough water to keep it regulated. All right, and there we go, guys. The ultimate urban compost bin right here. Look how small this is, very compact. You can fill this up in no time. You'll be able to use this for seed starts, amending beds, just topping beds if you want, all sorts of good stuff. And you're gonna have really, really great soil. Now with the holes on the bottom for draining, if you're gonna set this straight on the ground and you drilled probably a half or quarter inch, not an 1/8 inch hole at the bottom, you might actually get some worms to come out in there and actually help you compost, which would not be a bad thing. So keep that in mind, depending on where you're gonna put it. If you're gonna put it on a patio or something like that, you probably wanna go with the 1/8 hole, a little bit smaller. You know, you don't want too much stuff to climb up in there. But I'm gonna close this up. We're gonna check up on it in like a month or so, and we're gonna see how it is. When it comes to this little compost bin here, it has a lot of rules to it, right? You're only gonna put vegetables in there, fruits, anything that's basically like kitchen scrap will go in there. No grease, no bones, no meat, none of that stuff. Anything plant-based fruit is going in here. That's really all you can compost in it, and you know, leaves, stuff like that. Your natural grass clippings, all that kind of stuff. And you want to try to keep your brown 2 to 1 to your greens. Your browns is your leaves, your dirt you already have in there. Grass clippings are kind of your greens, so are the vegetables. So 2 to 1, you want to try to keep it more soil, and after, you know, it kind of regulates itself. Once it gets going, you just add a couple things here and there. You're not going to have to worry about that much. Now, if you are interested in more composting, like possibly a no rules compost, that is what this bin right here is. This is completely no rules. I put grease in there, I put bones, anything and everything kind of goes in this compost. And I've actually had success with this. There is a turkey in there, bones that were all broken down and composted just fine. I've never seen them anymore, so I can only imagine that they composted down or something drug them away. But I put a bunch of stuff on top of it after I put them in there, so I really suspect it's gone. It composted down. So if you're interested, I'm going to be moving this bin and filming a video about it. And we're actually going to show you what's down at that bottom layer of this one when I move it. So stay tuned if you want to know more about a no rules compost. Okay, so that is the ultimate urban compost bin, if you ask me my opinion. It works really well, it takes up very minimal space, and you don't really have to do a ton to it. Just throw stuff in there, mix it in a little bit, let it do its magic. Remember guys, be bold and grow bold, and as always, we will see you in that very next video.